Well, it's an extremely difficult decision. I am very unique as a superintendent in this country with young children. My children are 4 and 11, so this uniquely impacts my house as well. I have a spouse who has very strong opinions about things, and really doesn't care that I'm superintendent. So on a personal front, it's a very hard decision because I firmly believe the best education we can provide is face-to-face. There's nothing compared to that. When you talk about kids' socialization skills, their ability to learn. However, what we can't control, what has been so difficult since March, is this external factor that no one can gauge, no one can really measure, and so we're forced to react and pivot to something that we're educators. We're used to planning, having metrics, and being able to predict things. And in this particular case, we can't. So I think that the plan that we presented to the board that our team has worked on for 4 months encompasses the best of all worlds. And I told the team, distance learning, as far as I'm concerned, will always be a part of our world because I think it could be a future solution for when we have to suspend kids or kids are in alternative ed. And so, but the real reality is I need them back in brick and mortar. So that's why we presented sort of this dual plan. Once all the safety and the county and the officials say that we're good to go, this is how we'll do that. Really thinking about the dimmer effect. So, starting with small groups, controlling numbers, constantly assessing data, because I think the other part I would want the community to understand is there are the employees on the other side of this. So again, I want my children to go to school. I show up if 10th was the date, but then say something happens, like they start coughing that night. I'm going to keep them home out of an abundance of caution for 14 days. And I think that's the reality, that we have to be fluid because not only do we want the social distancing in most cases, but you also want people to make personal choices for their families. And if we hear it all the time, if you're sick, stay home. If you don't feel well, or if you've been around people 14 days, self-quarantine. Well, that's applicable to employees and children. So it's going to be a constant. I think I've used the term red light, green light. I think we'll have many red light, green lights when we're back in brick and mortar, but then we also, if things get really, really bad, we're going to have to do a hard stop and go back to full distance learning. So definitely a difficult decision, but I think the team has brought forward a plan that encompasses the best of all worlds.
So a 10-hour plus meeting yesterday, marathon meeting as we've been calling it.
Yeah.
But we still don't have a definitive start date right now.
Right.
A lot of talk has been delaying it. Does a week, 2 weeks, will that make a difference? I mean, parents need a plan in place.
Yeah.
Is that an expedited conversation you guys are going to have to get
Well,
a definitive start date?
They will have that next week. And I think there was some comments towards the end, I think, when people got tired that caused me to pause, which is I want to make sure, my job is to make sure the board has all of the information before they make decisions. And when you change it, you would think a calendar would be simple. It is not, because you have union contracts, you have different employees on different calendars. And so once you adjust that, you have to be able to accommodate that. And so, we had done some preliminary work and figured that a week or two, we could probably do that with minimal disruption. But once you start getting beyond that, so we need to take the time this week to really dig into that. But the board's will and pleasure right now is to delay it, and it will be delayed. I'm almost confident in that. We just want to make sure that they know all of the realities of manipulating a calendar, because I think the other piece is we were talking about starting school. Well, in order to do that, we had to adjust other parts of the calendar. And I think it's important for the board and the larger community to know what the total impact of the calendar would be, because people may have made plans already and things like that. So, yes, sir.
Thinking last time we were going to have a decision, and now we're still up in the air a little bit. You're saying that it most likely will be delayed. Talk about the impact that has on the parents with having to get last-minute plans, but also the kids being stressed out, not knowing when they're going to go back to school.
Yeah, but I want to say something. We're in July, so it's not like we're starting school tomorrow, next week, the week. It's still weeks away, and so I think people should plan for whatever reality it's going to be. But I think for us, a delay in the start time will give us an opportunity to further solidify our plans. And I also want to say this: every day we get a new piece of information that augments a plan. So, if I were delaying to get the perfect plan, I would tell you that would be irresponsible, because there's not going to be a perfect plan. We get edicts and mandates on Monday morning, and we had a plan written on Friday. And so I think that's just the reality. We said it from the very beginning. We created a timeline. Stick to the timeline so that we can give our board and the community the most accurate information at the decision-making time, versus if I would have put out something 3 weeks ago, we'd have been fighting over that. decisions would have came down from top, it would have completely been blown out of proportion and been a waste of time. So I think the way we approached it allowed us to go slow and steady so that the board and the community can have the most accurate information at the decision-making point.
A lot of talk last night and from parents over the course of this decision-making has been about technology.
Yes.
Those communities that don't have the best access to Wi-Fi, those families that there's 2, 3 kids in the house trying to share one tablet or one laptop, some don't even have one. What is the district doing to make that easier this time around and not what we saw at the end of the school year?
Well, first of all, we have information now. We were asked in March to stop school. There was no pre-planning for that. I think we were in a better position just because of some work we had done with Ebola and other viruses in the past. But I think moving forward, I think what we can expect is that there will be a greater connectivity. We have great working relationships with the county, local municipalities, business development board, economic council. So many people are coming together to try to solve this problem. The connectivity is not a district problem, but we are part of the solution. The devices and things like that, we are working through that. We've collected the majority of our devices back for the seniors that just left, so those will be redistributed. We still have close to 35,000 machines in the buildings that have not been distributed that we can hand out, and we've ordered some. But as you know, the entire world is doing the exact same thing, so the supply chain is a challenge. But we have a commitment to receive 10,000 a week once those start coming in August, and we're going to do everything in our power to meet those demands.
How much curriculum is planned for the virtual learning as of right now? Is it a month? Is it 2 months? How much do you guys have?
You have to remember, curriculum is already established. Whether we're in the building or not, the curriculum is already written. So we call it's called a scope and sequence. So that is all done. So the district, our normal scope and sequence will be followed in the distance learning platform.
We've heard from some parents that they never heard from their teacher. It was an assignment was handed out.
Yep.
They maybe didn't hear from them again for another week.
Yep.
How do you hold teachers accountable in this type of situation to make sure that these kids are not falling behind?
Well, the great news is that our union officials, the CTA, have been in negotiations with us for over a month. We have put some very clear accountability metrics that would require teachers to be be live in person on those devices on the distance platform. So we feel very good about that. I mean, you have to remember the first time we didn't even we anticipated coming back to school when we closed the first time. So there was no real expectation of this extended being out of school. Well, now we know the realities. We've had a lot of time to look at what we did in the past, and I'm confident in our CAO and our deputy superintendent's team to work through that. So I've seen the preliminary pieces. They're actually upstairs right now meeting with the principals. But let me be really clear. Pieces of this will be tweaked all the way until the end. And it will be tweaked once it begins, because that's the nature of teaching. You have to adjust based on what's in front of you sometimes. And so, but we have a clear direction moving forward and very, very excited about that work.
Right, we just have time for probably one more question. If that's
What
okay.
about for our high school seniors and athletes that are trying to pursue a scholarship or college? How does this put them at a disadvantage, and what steps are being done to make sure that they can further their education once they leave the district?
It's an interesting question. The Florida High School Athletic Association, major colleges and universities, the Ivy League has already canceled their season. There's a lot to be said for that. No one can really answer the question how 2 linemen on a football team can play and not give each other coronavirus. And so these are just, again, safety and health of our students first. I would argue that most of the children in America are going to be in the same situation. So as we work with universities to figure out how to not put our kids at a disadvantage, that will be an ongoing conversation. But as of today, all decisions are going to be based on the safety and wellness of our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Crowe. We appreciate it.
Do you want to ask the question about his priority, though, about getting kids back in school? Because a lot of parents are confused, thinking that this is an indefinite thing, but that's definitely built into Dr. Crowe's plan. That's the goal.
Yeah, you said that last night, you said that last week as well, but you can reiterate it for sure, because I know you mentioned that you do want the kids to be safe to do so. Elaborate on that and what that would look like, because I know it would have to happen slowly.
Yeah, so again, my number one goal is to get kids back in school. And again, that may be a little selfish there because I have 2 of them in my house. But what I'm saying to you is that we have to do it safely. And so I think the way that the team has presented to the board the plan of phasing kids into the building will, again, allow us to test the situation, look at it, monitor it, look at our metrics, and control the the number of children in the building. You have to remember, some of our schools are bigger than some cities. And so, it sounds good in theory, just bring in 50% of your population. I have some high schools that have over 3,500 kids. That's still 1,500 children that you're asking to change classes and social, and they're teenagers. That's the other part about this, they have boyfriends and girlfriends. So we want to take our time, acclimate all of our students to a new reality. School as they know it will not be the same in any indefinite future. And so we have to be clear and give the kids time to understand that these rules are going to matter, these new expectations, your way of performing, the way you go to band class, the way you go to the cafeteria, if you go at all. These are all things that are going to take time to condition kids and our adults to this new reality.